By the end of this video, you're going to have a checklist or a task list of things you need to take into consideration when you are putting together your submission strategy for entering your film into festivals. If you faced a lot of rejection from festivals, you're right there where most people are, because most people, when they're first starting out, they'll open up Film Freeway and become overwhelmed by the amount of festivals that are available on this platform. And as great as the platform is, it's not always the best at helping you identify which ones are right for your type of film. Now, this all really started for me 10 years ago when I had a feature film, and I had a couple of short films before this. And I really didn't have much of a thought process when I was submitting to film festivals. I was more or less submitting to festivals that were in locations I wanted to go to, mostly major cities like New York, LA, Chicago, Austin, but I didn't have a plan. And I just submitted to a bunch of festivals that I thought were good for my film, but I only made it into less than 10% of the festivals that I submitted to. And that really threw me, because you put a lot of effort into making your film. To not get into film festivals is very disheartening. And that's really the point of this entire channel, is I don't want that to happen as much as it does. I want you to get into a good clip of festivals that you submit to, and I want you to have a good strategy when you go into that. I started putting some thought into my strategy for my latest short film, and it got into over 50% of the festivals that I submitted to. And I made that huge jump by thinking about some things ahead of time and paying close attention to certain elements of film festivals that I thought might be right for the type of film that I had to offer. I knew what kind of film I had to offer, and I knew what kind of audience would be most interested in that film. Now, when it comes to festivals, it's always subjective. You never really know who is on the other side of that computer screen looking at your film, evaluating your film. You never have any idea what other types of films you're competing against to get into those festivals. There's never a guarantee. But if you put yourself in the best position, you are going to find that you get a higher amount of acceptance rate than if you just went completely haphazard with your submissions. The first thing that I suggest doing before you start making your budgets, you want to have a breakdown of about 60% of festivals that are regional and 30% that are out of town, both of which that fit the genre or the niche of the type of film that you have made. Now, you can decide what is regional and what is out of town. Where you draw that line is up to you, but you want to have a 60-30 ratio of these types of festivals in order to keep costs under control. And then you want to have 10% that are more of your big swings, your larger festivals that you think you can honestly get into, or some festivals that are in locations that you really want to visit, and just taking some risks. All right, being a filmmaker is all about taking risks, but you want to take some calculated risks. Before I get into that breakdown a little bit further, I want to talk about your budgets. There's really two budgets that you want to come up with. Number one is for submission fees. Think about it ahead of time, or even make it part of your production budget, your submission fees. Or if you could put a target number in mind, you can start to save up while you're in production on your film. But either way, you want to have a good idea of how much you're willing to spend on festival submissions so that you know which ones you're able to actually target. I would say the average Film Freeway submission fee is about $25. A lot of film festivals are less than that for newer ones, and then ones that are a little more established tend to start to go up from there. But generally, if you want to submit to about 30 festivals, you're going to be spending about $1,000. Possibly less, possibly more, depending on how you mix that up. And then you also want to make a budget for how much you can spend during travel. A lot of people really don't think about that ahead of time. You submit to a bunch of festivals that are nowhere near you that you would have to travel to, so all of a sudden you have to spend thousands and thousands of dollars. Sometimes you get into that situation, you can't afford to even go to the festival if you get in. Think about those two budgets ahead of time and know what you're willing to spend, because it affects what kind of festivals you can go for. A pro tip I have for submission fees, when you're budgeting for your submission fees, you want to target early bird deadlines. The vast majority of festivals that you're going to encounter will have an early bird deadline, a regular deadline, and a late deadline. The reason you want to target early bird deadlines or at the latest regular deadlines is once you get past that and you start going towards late submission deadlines, the screening committees are already starting to get an idea of what films are at the top of their list. And the decision makers are already starting to think about what kinds of blocks that they're going to put these films in. As they start to do that, it becomes harder and harder and harder to squeeze in. You're not just going towards a general, this is a good film, this is a bad film. You're competing against specific films that they might already like that you now have to be better than that film just to get in. If you're in early, you're one of those films that they've already decided, hey, I think this belongs in my festival, I want to have it in, and somebody has to come in and beat you in order to get in. That's the position you want to be in. That's why you want to go into the early birds or the regular deadlines. So let's talk a little bit more about that breakdown. 60% of your submissions should be semi-regional. And again, you can decide what is within driving distance for you. But really the point is to try to keep your travel costs lower by making your biggest chunk somewhere drivable. Now, I've driven as far as 14 hours to go to a festival and only spent a couple of bucks on hotels. There are ways to save money when you're traveling that you can explore. There are all kinds of tips that I've heard on staying at friends' houses or doing Airbnbs or using points on your hotels. But the less you have to get on a plane to go to these festivals, the less money you're going to spend, because that's generally the part that it's hardest to save money on. And the other reason, apart from cost, to keep things semi-regional, is that when you go to these festivals, you meet people that you are more likely to work with in the future. Meeting people that are within 30, 40, 50, 100 miles from you, and you want to do a project in the future, well, now all of a sudden you've just expanded your network of people that you can call that might want to help working on those films. Again, taking that into consideration, planning for the future to make the most out of going to film festivals when you get in. It's not just about getting in and getting your Q&A and getting your awards or your laurels or things like that. It's about making connections once you get there. So once you've determined where the line is for what you consider regional or drivable, then you want to consider about 30% of your budget is dedicated to out-of-town or international festivals. It's important to stay regional. It's for all the reasons I just mentioned, but you still want to expand your horizons and you still want to experience new places and new people that will help your creativity, that will help get you more recognition and more of an establishment in other parts of the country or other parts of the world. If you can travel overseas, great. Even if you can't, just having them screen in different parts of the world, now they know who you are. Now they've seen your work. Sometimes these will come with more expensive submission fees. Sometimes they'll be even less. But just having a handful that you're targeting specific to your genre or specific to a location that you think that you would like to visit, you can plan a vacation around it. I've done this a couple of times where, I've scheduled a film festival in a specific location that my family and I want to travel to. So we give ourselves a good reason to go, and we're going to the film festival, but we're also going to experience that area as well. It's great for family building. It's great for team building. There's a lot of benefits to trying to get out of your comfort zone and get out of your region and go to different places. The 10% of your big swings is really just about taking some risks, taking some calculated risks. Everybody wants to submit to Sundance or TIFF or Cannes or Venice. And if you've got the means, go for it. If you've got a little bit of a bigger budget that you can afford to spend the $85, $65, $100 that it costs to submit to some of these bigger ones, go for it. Who am I here to stop you? I just caution you to not go too far above that 10% of your total budget submitting to festivals that your chances of getting in are lower, because for the amount that it costs to enter a gigantic festival, you could have submitted to 4, maybe even 5 smaller festivals and gotten into 4 or 5 smaller festivals. Manage your money a little bit better, but still take the calculated risks. You want to have a good mix, because when you're going on a festival run, you really just want to have a broad range of locations and people that you're going to meet, because that's what's ultimately going to help your career. Getting into a festival isn't just about the screening. It's not just about the Q&A. It's not just about the awards. It's about growing your network. It's about experiencing new places and new people and growing your career as a filmmaker. That is the whole point. Before you've even made your film, get a calendar that you can spread out that has a list of every early bird submission deadline, every regular submission deadline, every notification date, and when the film actually takes place, because it's hard to see when you're looking at individual festivals. You can inadvertently enter a ton of festivals that are taking place the same weekend. That has happened to me, that has happened to other filmmakers that I know. We ran into that just a few weeks ago at our film festival, where we had a filmmaker who had a great film that was up for 2 awards, and they couldn't attend because they had already committed to attending a previous festival that was taking place the same weekend. If there was a little bit of a better tool on Film Freeway, this would be a lot easier, but help yourself out a little bit and get a calendar where you can actually see and spread out where all of these things are taking place, so that you are not spending a ton of money on a bunch of festivals that are taking place at the same time, because you can't be in 2 places at once. So I don't want you to spend a ton of money and then not being able to go to all these festivals because they're all taking place the exact same day. This channel is all about helping filmmakers getting into more festivals. You can help me out by leaving a comment and letting me know what you want to know about the film festival submission process. It really helps out the channel if I know what questions you have, what concerns you have about the film festival submission process. The more I know about what you want to know, the better I can do at making videos that deliver the answers that you need. But if you want to know more about what types of festivals are out there and what types of festivals might be right for your specific kind of film that you're making, I have a video on that too. You can click on it right here.